in October when you spoke at a conference and said that you were shorting U.S. Treasuries. I think it was 10 to 15% of your portfolio at that time. You still shorting Treasuries based on what you're watching?
I still have a short in Treasuries. I know a lot of people have been surprised by interest rates rising after the cut. Of course, we weren't, because I thought the Fed was making a mistake. And I was worried about the same animal spirits we've been talking about, and of course, our horrendous fiscal situation. Having said that, we've come quite a ways. I think we're probably in the 7th inning, but sometimes you can make a lot of money from the 7th inning to the 9th inning. And who knows, if the Fed stimulus into a melt up in asset prices with the kind of animal spirits I talked about give you upward inflation, which is not our forecast, but we're definitely open-minded to it, and we're not expecting lower inflation, that could tip the bond market and create a problem. So we're still short Treasuries, but we're certainly not pressing the size of that position now.
You've said in a perfect world, Stan, that you're not a fan of tariffs, but that it could be potentially the lesser evil if it's done in moderation.
Yeah, I don't want to exit this interview as tariff man. In a perfect world, I would not be for a 10% tariff, but we're not in a perfect world. As you know, we have a big fiscal problem, mandatory spending, plus interest expense is literally 100% of revenues right now. And both sides of the aisle have said they are not about to cut entitlements, which is the elephant in the room. Having said that, because of that, we need pay-fors. So our main choices are an income tax and a consumption tax like tariff. So when I say tariffs are the lesser of the two evils in terms of those two, because we have a fiscal problem, we need revenues. Tariffs will generate revenues. We also have a private savings problem in this country. They're far too low. So I think a lot of economists who are out raising the alarm bells about tariffs would probably be fine with a consumption tax. To me, tariffs are simply a consumption tax that foreigners pay for some of it. Now, the risk is retaliation, but as long as we stay in the 10% range, and I think so-called fear of Donald Trump, I think the risks are overblown relative to the rewards. The rewards are on high. It's more like they're the lesser of two evils.
You know, Stan, you had said before the election that you would not be voting for Kamala Harris. You would not be voting for Donald Trump. Part of your concern was, I think, what you called bipartisan fiscal recklessness on the part of all parties. At this point, you've been very concerned about our spending levels and not getting that under control. But Scott Bessent has been tapped to be the incoming Treasury Secretary. He's someone you know well. You worked with him. He worked with you at the Soros Fund, and you've worked very closely with him. I think you know him well. How do you feel about the appointments that are being made and named when it comes to looking after the fiscal side of things, or at least when it comes to the Treasury Department, what you might anticipate?
Scott's extremely capable, big brain, very thoughtful. He's in the unique position that I don't think any other Treasury Secretary has been in, where he's been an active participant in markets. As he said in his confirmation hearing, he's been to 40 countries. I know he's been involved in markets in at least 40 countries. So he's extremely capable. He understands the fiscal situation. I think he understands that the biggest risk to this administration is both fiscal and inflation. Having said that, he's not in charge. He's extremely persuasive. He had no problem persuading me many times when we worked together, but I just don't know how it's going to work out. This is a huge, huge problem he inherits. The deficit is currently at 6.7% of GDP. It's $1.9 trillion. The last time we were at full employment was 2017. It was 3.4% of GDP. We also have peace. So we have a president who in the campaign said he's going to not have taxes on tips, not have taxes on Social Security. So there's a lot of things going on. There's some hope on Doge. I've heard the optimistic assessments. I hope they're true. I'm too old and too cynical to really see a lot of that stuff happening. If they could cut 200 or 300 trillion out That'd be great. If we could get, say, $1 trillion or more over the next 10 years out of tariffs, that would help. But we're just in a mess because interest expense is just a huge, huge growing elephant. And it's above defense spending. It's now above non-mandatory discretionary spending. So unless we get this under control, the eighth wonder of the world, power of compounding with interest expense, is just going to continue to cause upward pressure.